second watch found me already standing. The left eye still refused full light. Purple had hardened into a swollen seam that made every lantern a blade. The right eye did the work of two and resented it. Cassian's cane leaned at the signum post where Tiro had set it, not as a shrine, as a hole with wood in it. Men stepped around that hole without being told. That was the first honest obedience of the night. I opened the panel once, inventory only. Lucius Varro, level 17, experience 0 of 11100, strength 13, endurance 14, agility 14, vitality 14, intelligence 15, skill echoes, shield hook, battle ready, arrow step, novice, boar brace, practiced, echo slots 3 of 3, chest pack tight under the arm, thigh cut stiff, forearm stitch pulling when I flexed, shin line hot, ribs grating if I twisted too far, sight ban written in flesh, not in any system rule. Levels did not close wounds. The panel did not argue. I closed it. Rufus met me on the mound steps with a cloak that smelled of river damp and old wax. "You will not spend 3 centuries to decorate guilt," he said, as if he had stood inside my contract with the cane. "I will not," I said. "I will spend scouts, cloth, and 1 thin blade of men who can walk quiet. And if quiet fails, then we leave with living mouths or with truth, not with a pretty death row." He nodded once. Gaius was not on the steps. That absence already had ink in it. Livia arrived with 2 tablets and a 3rd blank. "Armin's fires are not random," she said. 3 clusters south of the red strip, 1 closer to the wagon park, 1 near a low earth wall that did not exist yesterday, 1 that moves. "Moving fires mean pens or officers who do not sleep," I said. "Or bait," she said. "Assume bait first, prove otherwise with feet, not hope." Tiro brought the signum down to half height so night wind would not advertise us across the fields. He had dirt on his cheek and no apology for it. Elias marked 3 low paths from the refugee talk. 1 is a drainage cut, 1 is a cart scar, 1 is a goat line the shepherds used before the drums. "Goat line," I said. "Harder for ponies, harder for silver clasps who like roads." Hanno flexed his bound wrist and swore at the bandage. "Ferry stays hours. If you die out there, I still sink the deck on order. Do not make me explain your corpse to the chain." "I will try to remain inconvenient," I said. Cassian's cane stayed at the post. I did not take it. A cane is a voice. I was going to bring the voice back or learn why wood was all that remained. Secundus found me with the custody book under 1 arm like a shield made of names. 56 sealed remain sealed. 3 temporary raiders separate. Odo sitting sleep. Beran better breath, worse color. Field bonds from the Red Day still outside the main register. 14 of rank or use if Bram lived the night, and he did, cursing. 3 unnamed wounded still under temporary posts. No clever mergers while you hunt a cane. "Keep it that way," I said. "If I do not return by 3rd dawn, Rufus owns the book, not Gaius." Secundus's mouth flattened. Understood. I walked the medical line because wounded men can smell when officers only visit for theatre. Sava pressed a fresh cloth to a burn and did not look up. "Your eye is a door that should stay shut." "I know. Knowing is cheap. Keep it shut when Silver wants you to look." Capito sat on his bucket again, ear-stitched, drinking vinegar water like it offended him personally. "Rescue is how good lines become empty lines," he said. "Then we will not be good," I said. "We will be narrow." Navius stood too straight until I told him to bend. "I want on the thin blade," he said. "You want redemption for almost running a false horn. You get the right century's sleep and a morning ready to receive whoever comes back bleeding. That is harder than glory." He hated it. He obeyed. I marked the difference. I slept in pieces between the second and third hours, never deep enough for dreams to finish their lies. When I rose, the cane was still wood, the chain still iron, and Armin's far fires still patient. Patience is a weapon when the other side loves speed. I checked the spare scutum's grip lever twice because wet nights loosen honest work. The grip held. My hands were the unreliable part. Purple under the strip pulsed when I turned too fast toward a lantern. I slowed the turn and let the right eye lead like a stubborn mule that still knew the path. A cook's boy brought watered wine. I sent it to the wounded line and kept water. Wine makes the panel feel like advice. Water only makes you able to stand. Standing was the entire religion of Second Watch. Far across the fields, one of Armin's moving fires paused, then split into two. Livia would want that on cloth at dawn. I scratched the observation into a scrap with charcoal and pushed it into my belt. Intelligence 15 is useless if it trusts memory after blood loss. Cassian's cane at the post caught a thin edge of lantern light and threw it back like a narrow eye. Men avoided stepping on the circle of dirt around it. Superstition and respect share boots sometimes. I did not break the circle. I owed the wood that much quiet. Rufus's second watch captain asked whether temporary tactical command from the Red Day still applied in the dark. Until Rufus says otherwise, the field still answers the same mouths, I said. If the mouths disagree, the horn wins. He repeated it back without adding glory. I kept him on the roster for that. I found Ralla awake early, sharpening a peeler point that did not need it. Sleep, I told him. Dull minds make sharp points useless. He slept after one more stroke, which is obedience with a surcharge. I accepted surcharges from men who had lost brothers. The chain's tick carried faintly up the mound when wind ran riverward. I timed my breathing to it for 10 cycles until the purple pulse under the strip slowed. Tricks are allowed when they do not pretend to be magic. Dawn of the day after the red field did not look like victory. It looked like laundry, bandages, and men counting arrows as if arithmetic could apologize. Livia spread cloth on a table under the fort eave. Red strip, Ford, wagon smoke stains drawn in charcoal. 3 fire clusters marked with pinheads. Refugee talk says the moving fire is a holding ring for taken Romans, she said. Not certain. Useful if true. Fatal if you believe it too early. Who talked? A boy who herded goats and lost 2 uncles. A woman who sold onions and saw silver clasps drag a limping man who insulted them in Latin and something older. The limp matches Cassian. The insults match him better. Tiro leaned in. I can walk the goat line before full light with 2 quiet men. No signum, no glow. Cloth signals only if we must. No hero trips, I said. You look, you count, you return. If you are taken, I do not trade the fort for you. I come with a plan that still leaves the fort standing. He almost smiled. Cassian would call that cold. Cassian would call it not being an idiot, I said, and the cane at the post seemed to agree without speaking. Rufus approved 12 men for the thin blade, 6 from my mixed century who could walk soft, 4 from Capito who hated soft but obeyed intervals, 2 from the ferry hands who knew mud by smell. Hanno wanted to come. I refused his wrist and his value at the pins. He cursed me with loyalty and checked the chain twice out of spite. Gaius arrived late with clean boots and a face arranged for concern. A rescue without my reserve is theatre, he said. A reserve that marches loud is a funeral, I said. Hold south, hold paper, hold your imagination. His smile did not reach his eyes, as ordered for now. Livia watched him go. He is already writing the version where your absence is ambition. Then we return before his ink dries. Ilias laid signal times on wax, false bird calls for halt, cloth flash for enemy count over 10, no flash for empty. Also checked straps until leather squeaked apology. Pellis sent a boy with a message that the cut rope watch had doubled again, and that anyone who touched a pin without order would swim with stones. Small, boring walls. I collected them. Sava packed my chest cloth tighter and tied a strip over the left eye so wind would not trick me into opening it. If you tear this off to look at Armin, I will charge you vinegar, she said. Fair tax. Before we left the eve, I walked Secundus's wall once more. Bram lived and spat toward me without strength enough to reach. Kor stared at nothing. The silver guard sat bound with the patience of men waiting for a larger board. I did not open eagle sight. Silver likes readers. I had learned that with blood under the arm. Field bonds stay field bonds, I told Secundus. If the fort is pressed while I am out, you do not open seals to make volunteer heroes. You hold names. I hold names, he said. Tiro left first with his 2 quiet men, while the sky was still the color of old blade oil. I waited with the thin blade in the drainage shadow of the mound, eating bread that tasted of ash, because ash was honest. Endurance 14 still demanded material. Strength 13 did not lift the bread for me. Intelligence 15 only made the waiting louder. Capito muttered, "If the boy dies on a goat path, I will say I told you. If he dies, you will still hold left tomorrow," I said. Grief is not a redeployment order. Tiro returned sooner than fear wanted, and later than hope wanted. Mud to the knees. One quiet man bleeding from a thorn, not a blade. Goat line works to a scrub rise, Tiro whispered. Beyond it, a low earth wall, new cut, not settled. Fires behind it, moving ones are torch circuits. I counted 8 walking lights and a dark block that sounds like men in a pen. Heard Latin cursing. Heard a cane voice without a cane. Cassian, alive enough to offend. Guards? Oval shields, some silver clasps near the dark block. Ponies picketed west, wagons further south, canvas lumps, 2 with oil smell. Feels like a jaw. It is a jaw. Livia said from the eve edge, close enough to hear without being part of the blade. Do not put your head in because you miss a voice. I will put a thin blade in, cut 1 hinge and leave, I said. If the jaw closes, we break teeth, not skulls, and we run with what mouths we can carry. Rufus sealed the plan with a look, not a speech. Horn remains mine. If I blow withdrawal, you obey, even if Cassian is 1 wall away. I obey, I said, and hated how clean the words sounded. We moved at the hinge of light when shadows are longest and eyes are least sure. No signum. Tiro carried a short cloth on a stick that meant nothing to anyone who did not already know us. I carried a spare scutum that had not yet learned my bad habits. The cracked original was ash and splinters on the red field. Wood has short biographies in war. I made Tiro eat before he left. Heroes who skip bread become corpses who skipped bread. He chewed like the loaf had insulted him, and then checked his quiet men's straps with fingers that had learned not to fumble under fear. Ilias wanted to come as a 4th scout because he could write terrain. I refused. Writers die on goat lines when they stop to make the map beautiful. You will write what Tiro brings back, I said. If he brings nothing, you will write that nothing honestly. Capito's 4 for the thin blade included a man named Ralla, who had lost a brother on the red strip and wanted silver clasps as payment. I told him the payment was living walkers, not jewelry. He hated me for a breath and then nodded, which is how hate becomes usable. Livia inked a small square on her cloth labeled "Unknown on Purpose." Empty certainty kills more men than labeled ignorance, she said. I wanted that sentence carved above every officer's bed. Hanno tested my spare scutum rim with a ferry hand's contempt for pretty wood. It will crack if you pray with it, he said. Use it as a door, not a relic, I promised. Promises to Hanno are enforced by chain pins and mockery. Before the hinge of light, I walked past the custody wall and let the sealed 56 see that the fort's rules had not dissolved because 1 veteran was missing. Rules that dissolve under grief become ornamental. Ornamental rules get people killed in tidy rows. Rufus inspected the thin blade's water skins himself, a legate's habit reduced to fatherly suspicion. One skin was half air. He made the owner drink the rest and refill from the honest jar. Air does not stop bleeding, Rufus said. The owner blushed hard enough to warm the dawn. I asked Livia whether Gaius's uncle's name had appeared on any supply chit in the last month. Not yet, she said. Yet is doing a lot of work in that sentence, I answered. She almost smiled and sharpened a stylus instead. The goat line was a ribbon of trampled scrub and old dung that pretended not to be a road. It lied well enough. Ponies would hate the roots. Oval shields would hate the narrow. We hated it too and used it anyway. Arrow step stayed novice in the hips, a sideways suggestion, not a law. I used it once when a dry branch cracked under Orso and a far torch paused. The step saved a silhouette. It also left my shin line burning and my balance a half count late. Novice is a promise that still charges interest. Slow, I breathed. Orso slowed. Capito's 4 looked offended by slow and obeyed it like a hated uncle. Halfway to the scrub rise, a pair of host scouts crossed the cart scar to our right. 2 men, light gear, talking low about bread. Not silver, not officers. I did not need sight to know hungry men on a circuit. We sank into scrub. They passed. No award in silence. Silence is rent paid to keep later noise useful. At the scrub rise, we saw the earth wall Tiro had named, raw, wet dark, thrown up in a day by men who understood ditches. Behind it, torch circuits moved like patient insects. The dark block was a square of posts and lashed hides. Voices leaked, Latin, Northern, the wet cough of someone who had been hit in the ribs and refused to die politely. Cassian's cough. I would have known it in a storm. A false horn sounded from the west, Roman pitch, almost perfect. Navius's nightmare made flesh by someone who had listened too well on the red day. My thin blade tensed. I raised a flat hand. Not ours. Rufus holds the true horn. Ignore pretty lies. They settled. Fear did not leave. It just found a seat and waited. We crawled the last stretch on elbows and shame. Mud entered every cut I owned. The chest pack complained. The eye strip itched like accusation. At 20 paces from the wall's outer corner, a guard turned his oval and yawned. Yawns are gifts. I did not mistake them for permission. 2 more guards sat on a log, sharing something from a skin. A third walked the pen side with a spear used more as a walking stick than a threat. Silver clasps glinted near the pen gate. 2 men, better posture, less yawn. The jaws hinge. I put my mouth to Tiro's ear. You and the quiet 2 cut the far torch circuit's rope line when I move. No killing unless forced. Confusion first. Capito's 4 hold our back trail. My 6 take the hinge. Ferry hands stay with Capito. Mud exits need hands that know wet. Tiro nodded. No speech. Good. I did not open eagle sight. The left eye could not have borne it, and the right remembered Armin's bait. I fought on breath, interval, and the ugly math of who stood where. We rose when the yawning guard turned fully away. The first man at the hinge never finished his turn. Shield hook, battle ready, took his rim and made his own oval a door into his teeth. He dropped without a shout worth the name. The second silver clasped and tried to make space. I stepped inside his spear arc, put the gladius under the clasp, and felt the system take notice only after the body knew it had lost. Experience gained 1,800. Skarn. The name arrived the way names sometimes did when the fight had been personal enough, heard earlier in a curse from the pen, pinned now to a cooling clasp. The panel flickered at the edge of pain. Experience 1,800 of 1,100 no level. No comfort. Receipt only. Noise woke the log drinkers. Capito's back trail became a brief, ugly knot, short spears, a cut thigh on one of ours, a host man who ran and was tripped by a ferry hand's rope dart. We did not chase the runner far. Chasing is how jaws close from the outside. Tiro's rope cut dropped 2 torches into wet grass, smoke and cursing. The pen voices rose. Cassian's cut through them like a saw. "About time, you slow bastards. Use the gate latch, not your feelings. Alive, offended, perfect." Roots grabbed ankles with the enthusiasm of old debts. I counted my own breaths to keep the file's pace from becoming a run. Running on a goat line is how you announce yourself to every owl and every sentry who knows owls do not curse in Latin. One of Capito's men started whispering a prayer to a river god. I let him finish. Then I told him the river god preferred pins and quiet feet. He almost smiled, which under mud counts as morale. The false horn's second phrase tried to imitate Rufus's receive pattern and got the middle note wrong by a hair. That hair saved us. Men who live by horns learn micro-errors the way farmers learn weather. I filed the mimic's skill level under future problem. When we sank for the 2 hungry scouts, my thigh cut opened a bead line that cooled too fast in the night air. Cold blood is a messenger. I ignored it the way you ignore a creditor until the door is kicked. Later would be kicked soon enough. Tiro's shoulder brushed mine once, not panic, confirmation. The boy who had needed protection now gave it in the form of presence. I did not thank him aloud. Thanks are loud. Presence is louder in the right way. A fox crossed our path with insulting calm. Capito's man raised a spear. I pushed the shaft down. Foxes are not host scouts. Killing the wrong animal is how you teach the knight you are stupid. The fox vanished like a rumor with better feet than ours. The pen gate was lashed with wet rawhide and arrogance. Vigo found us there. Hook net man. Level something I refused to read. Net already swinging for legs. Nets are counters the system respects. I respected them enough not to be proud. Boar brace, practiced, wants a true commit and a line. I had 3 shields and a bad angle. I braced anyway when his netman partner crashed in behind the throw. The plant held, the net still kissed my greave and burned the shin line open again. Practiced is not mastered. Practiced still bleeds. Shield hook ripped the net rim into Vigo's own wrist. He howled. My 6 hit the second rank with intervals ugly but real. A pen guard tried to spear Tiro. Tiro went small, went side, put a short blade into the man's groin and looked sick about it after. Growing up is sometimes nausea with a purpose. I finished Vigo when he tried to draw a long knife left-handed. Meaningful, personal, done. Experience gained, 1900. Experience, 3700 of 11100. Dara came from the wagon smell. Oil on canvas, a chief with a braided belt and a voice that ordered oval shields into a temporary wall between us and the pen. She was not large, she was arranged. Arrangement kills more men than size. Left hinge, I called. Capito's 4 refused the pretty center and hit the wall's edge the way Cassian had beaten into us with a cane and insults. The wall buckled. I took the buckle with shield hook and made Dara's ordered rim a traitor to her own line. She cut my forearm pack and found old stitch instead of new artery. I put steel into the place her braid left open when she turned to shout. Experience gained, 2000. Experience, 5700 of 11100. The pen latch finally took a knife. Fairy hands are rude to knots. The hides fell inward. Romans spilled, some crawling, some blinking, some already trying to form a line with no shields because pride is a hard habit. Among them, Cassian stood on one good leg and one traitor, face swollen, hands bound in front with the kind of careful rope that says the captor wanted talk later. Idiot, he said when he saw me, and the word was a blessing. Later, I said. I cut his ropes, he almost fell. I did not let him. Tiro shoved Cassian's recovered cane. No, the cane was at the fort. I had brought a spear shaft cut short. Cassian took it like a man recognizing a cousin of his old authority. How many living? I asked the nearest Roman, who still had eyes that focused. 9 of ours still breathing. 2 won't walk. 1 northern boy who says he was taken for refusing a silver order. Don't trust him. We take walkers first, I said. Stretchers if we have cloth. No debates in the mouth of a jaw. Pell arrived as if summoned by the word jaw. Trap Lane Master, smiling with no humor, 2 men with stakes and a third with a horn of the false Roman pitch. He blew it. My thin blade flinched as a body. I did not. False, I snapped. Eyes on ovals, not music. Pell's stake team tried to pin our exit to the goat line. Arrow Step carried me off the first stake's bite, novice luck and agility 14, arguing with mud. I slipped, caught, and hated the slip. Pell's smile widened. I hooked his stake aside and put him down hard enough that the smile left before the breath did. Experience gained, 2,200. Experience 7,900 of 11,100. Move, Cassian rasped. They built this pen to be found. You found it. Now pay the tax. What tax? The part where the real teeth show, he said, and looked past me toward the pony pickets coming alive. Orth came with them. Gate tower man, even without a tower, tall, tusk plate on one shoulder, spear longer than comfort, the kind of enemy the red field had taught me not to admire. My 6 were already carrying a non-walker on a cloak. Capito bled from the Thornman's upgrade into a real cut. Tiro's cloth stick was red where it had blocked a slash meant for a prisoner's neck. Line, I said, and for a breath we were a line. Orth hit like a cart that had learned manners just enough to aim. Boar Brace took the first true commit and held. Hips, heels, practiced depth. The second commit was a feint into a low cut. Brace is blind to feints. I paid with the edge of the scutum and a shock up the bad ribs. Shield Hook answered on the recovery and made his long spear a bad guest inside our interval. Capito's man put a short blade into Orth's thigh. I finished the work because unfinished champions stand back up in stories and in mud. Experience gained 3,200. Level 18 reached. Experience 0 of 12,600. The free point burned behind the sternum like a coin forced through bone. I put it where the knight would collect rent. Endurance 14 became 15. The body did not become young. It became slightly slower to empty. That was all. That was what I needed to keep carrying Cassian's weight without falling on the goat line. Lucius Varro, level 18, experience 0 of 12,600, strength 13, endurance 15, agility 14, vitality 14, intelligence 15, skill echoes, shield hook, battle ready. Arrow Step, novice, Boar Brace, practiced. Echo slots, 3 of 3. Wounds remained wounds. The eye strip remained law. Orth's spear lay in mud like a question I refused to answer with sight. Go, Cassian said, before the silver choir arrives. We went, 9 walkers, 2 dragged, 1 northern boy under watch, my thin blade thinner by 1 dead and 2 who would need Sava's hands if we lived. Torches behind us multiplied. The jaw had noticed it was missing a meal. Inside the pen, the air smelled of unwashed fear and old rope. A man with a broken mouth tried to salute and hurt himself doing it. I pushed his arm down. Walk first, ceremony never. Cassian's swollen face made his grin look like a wound learning humor. You brought the quiet ones. Good. Loud ones die at latches. He coughed and spat pink. They wanted me to say you keep a god in your eye. I told them you keep a ledger. Ledgers annoy fanatics. The northern boy flinched when Roman walkers stared. Also kept a hand near his collar without choking him. Restraint is a skill. I marked Orso for a quieter kind of promotion later. More watches, less speeches. When Orth's long spear cracked my spare rim, splinters kissed my cheek below the eye strip. For a stupid instant, I almost ripped the strip off to see his full panel. Cassian's earlier voice, intervals, not miracles, hit harder than the splinters. I kept the strip and kept the ugly oval I stole after. Endurance 15 arrived in the body as a refusal to drop Cassian's weight immediately. Not glory, stamina with a name. I used it to half-drag him 3 paces while Tiro took the other side, and the system did not get to charge me for love. After Orth fell, one of the silver clasps, still breathing, tried to bargain with names of Roman buyers. I gagged him gently enough to keep teeth and hard enough to stop theatre. Stamps later, I said. Walking now. Helvius nodded, as if I had recited a mule-trained psalm. The goat line that had loved us on the way in hated us on the way out. Weight makes noise, noise makes hunters. Kest's pony cordon hit the scrub rise before we cleared it. Light cavalry with oval infantry jogging behind like a net with hooves. Rescue clothes had been the pen. The trap was the path home. Down the drainage, Cassian barked, voice raw, authority intact. He was not in command. He commanded anyway. Men listened because the voice had beaten fear into them in older camps. We slid into the drainage cut. Ponies hated the drop. Men with spears liked the edges. Bramble showed first among the edge lovers. Inner circle carriage, silver boar at the throat, shield work too clean for a random bandit. He did not shout, he arranged. I still did not open sight. Arrangement can be read with the right eye and scars. Kest drove a lance at our cloak stretcher. I took the line with boar brace and felt endurance 15 hold the plant a heartbeat longer than 14 would have. The lance skittered. Shield hook took Kest's bridle arm as he tried to wheel. He fell hard. A pony screamed. Someone who was not me ended the scream's rider when Kest tried to rise with a short blade. Experience gained 2,400. Experience 2,400 of 12,600. Don't watch the receipt, Cassian snapped. Watch the next spear. Brammel's clean shield wall pinched the drainage. My 6 became 4 effectives and 2 who could still hold a rim. Capito spat blood and laughed once, ugly. This is why I hate rescues. Hate later, I said. I needed a break in Brammel's arrangement. Tiro gave it without being asked. Cloth flashed to the left scrub, then a thrown stone that sounded like a larger move. 2 ovals turned. Ugly openings are still openings. I went into the turn with shield hook and made Brammel's neighbor a problem for Brammel's elbow. Brammel corrected fast. Fast is not free. Capito's short blade found the corrections tax. I paid the rest. Experience gained 2,800. Experience 5,200 of 12,600. The northern boy under watch tried to run toward the host line. Also tackled him into mud. I said don't trust him. The focusing Roman gasped. We still don't, I said. Bind him, move him, judge him under seals, not under lances. We moved. The drainage spat us toward a low farm wall that had been a family's pride last year and was now a scrap of cover. Behind us, horns. True host horns, not false Roman pitch, called more weight. Siva arrived from the wagon park direction with oil on her sleeves and a war chief's patience. Supply escort mined. She did not waste bodies on our front. She cut toward our walker's flank like a woman collecting spilled grain. Tiro, walkers to the wall. Capito, hinge, with me. Siva's first rush was a true commit. Boar brace ate it and held. Her second was 2 commits at once from wingmen while she smiled at my hips. Brace cannot be everywhere. Arrow step took me off the left wing's point, novice, ugly, shin screaming, and left me open to her knife. Cassian, Cain cousin's spear shaft in hand, hooked her wrist the way old men hook pride. The knife kissed my chest pack instead of my heart. I put her down with less grace than the system likes, and more need than pride allows. Experience gained 2,600. Experience 7,800 of 12,600. You're welcome, Cassian said, and then coughed blood onto my shoulder as if marking property. Stay upright. Working on it. Gore hit next, encirclement hammer, big, less clever than Siva, more certain. He wanted the wall broken and the walkers spilled. Certainty is a kind of intelligence. I met him with a line of 4 shields and a prayer I did not speak aloud. The plant held twice. The third impact cracked the spare scutum's rim. Wood biographies remained short. I discarded the dying board, took a dropped oval, and hated the balance for 3 breaths. Shield hook still knew rims. Hook does not require Roman paint. Gore overcommitted when he saw the swap as weakness. It was weakness. It was also a door. Capito and I took him together. Meaningful participation is not always pretty single combat. The system still counted when the hammer stopped. Experience gained 2,500. Experience 1,300 of 1,200 600. Fenric closed the rear of the cordon. Second ring, fresher legs, voice like a file. He tried to make our success into a sack by pushing us against the farm wall with fire arrows into the dry thatch of a dead outbuilding. Smoke became a counter. Eyes watered. The left eye under its strip pulsed murder. Through the smoke toward our own stink, I said. River direction. Do not fan out. We punched. Fenric met me in the grey. I could have opened sight and paid Armin's lesson again. I did not. I fought the shape of a man, the timing of a spear, the heat of a shield boss. When he dropped, the system wrote its line as if it had been watching with cleaner eyes than mine. Experience gained 2,300. Level 19 reached. Experience 0 of 1,400 200. Strength took the free point because the knight kept asking arms to do the work of ropes and hope. Strength 13 became 14. Lucius Varro, level 19. Experience 0 of 1,400 200. Strength 14. Endurance 15. Agility 14. Vitality 14. Intelligence 15. Skill echoes. Shield hook. Battle ready. Arrow step. Novice. Boar brace. Practiced. Echo slots. 3 of 3. I still could not see well. I still bled. I could shove a collapsing stretcher-bearer back onto his feet without asking the world for permission. That was the purchase. Cassian looked at my face as if he could see the panel. Don't tell me numbers, he said. Tell me the goat line still exists. It exists. It hates us. Move. Pony sweat has a sweet stink that sticks to fear. Kest's cordon used it like a banner. My borrowed breath came from Capito's curse stream and Tiro's clipped counts and Cassian's insistence on watching the next spear. Borrowed does not mean free. I would pay them back in road and water if we lived. When Brammel's clean wall pinched the drainage, I felt the old lockbreak ghost twitch in my hands. Dismissed skill trying to offer a grip solution I no longer owned. I refused the ghost. Ghosts make late hands. Shield hook remained the living tool. The ghost left a smear of nausea that made the mud smell worse. The focusing Roman with good eyes turned out to be named Helvius, a mule driver pressed into spear work, who kept repeating walker counts like a charm. 9, still 9, stretchers 2. Charms that are also arithmetic can stay. Siva's oil sleeves told a story about who slept near Wagons and who slept near glory. I preferred enemies who smelled of work. They die the same. They just teach more before they do. After level 19, strength 14 made Cassian feel less like a boulder and more like a boulder with handles, he noticed. Don't get sentimental about muscle, he rasped. Muscle forgets lessons if the head goes soft. Drainage mud climbed to our belts and tried to claim sandals as tithe. I lost one sandal, hopped, retrieved it, and became briefly comic in a night that needed any joke that did not cost blood. Cassian snorted, which cost him pain and bought me a second wind. Borrowed breath is what you take from men who trust you when your own lungs are full of smoke and vinegar fear. We broke into clearer dark with the river's wet iron somewhere ahead like a rumor of home. Host pursuit did not vanish because we had killed named teeth. Pursuit is a body with many hands. Hands kept reaching. Rufus's true horn sounded once from the fort direction. Not withdrawal. A location mark, a spine held upright in sound. My thin blade straightened as if the note had entered bone. Gaius's reserve did not appear. I filed that absence beside his clean boots. Livia would be on the mound with wax, counting what she could not see. The thought steadied me more than strength 14. Politics is also logistics. Logistics is also love with a harder face. A cluster of freed walkers began to cheer. I cut it with a hand. Cheering is a torch. Walk. They walked. One wept without noise. Noise would have been cheaper. Haldis found us at a cart scar bend with a countercharge meant to punish anyone stupid enough to burn what she guarded. She did not know we had not yet reached the wagons. She only knew Romans were loose and oil is a religion. Her charge was clean. Boar brace took the first shock. Shield hook made her wingman's oval a problem. She adapted, feint high, cut low, the kind of sequence that punishes brace worship. I ate the low cut on the borrowed oval and felt Vitality 14 argue with the bruise. Tiro, of all people, put his short blade into the back of her knee while she focused on me. He looked horrified at his own usefulness. I finished the fight before horror could become hesitation in the wrong body. Experience gained, 2,700. Experience, 2,700 of 14,200. I didn't ask, Tiro said. You didn't need to, I said. That is the point of a sentry that is not a single spear. Cassian staggered. I caught him. His side was darker than night should allow. When? I asked. When the pen latch opened and a clever bastard with a short spear decided a veteran should kneel. I declined. Decline has a price. Sava will count what can be counted, he said. You keep the mouths moving. Tauren's pursuit came as horse sweat and thrown javelins. One took a walker through the calf. We did not stop to make a speech about sacrifice. We made a drag litter from 2 spears and a cloak, and kept the interval. Tauren himself tried to ride me down as if I were a flag. Arrow step pulled me off the line of the horse. Novice timing barely enough. Agility 14 doing honest work. Strength 14 put the gladius into the place armor does not cover when a man leans too far to strike a ghost. He fell like a sack of plans. Experience gained, 2,900. Experience 5,600 of 14200. The river smell thickened. So did the sound of more ovals behind Tauren's mess. We were not clean. Clean was never the contract. At the scrub rise again, this time from the wrong direction, I saw the fort's distant lanterns like a string of disciplined stars. Between us and them lay the open strip that had been red yesterday and would be hungry again if we lingered. Thin file, I said. Walker's center, blade edges. If we are hit, we curl around the stretchers, not around me. Cassian snorted blood. Listen to him, he is almost house-trained. We ran when running was cheaper than dying. Endurance 15 made the run a tax instead of a collapse. Men still fell. We picked up what we could. We left a host dead where he had made himself a hostile fact. We did not leave our own living if arms could still lift. A javelin found my thigh near the old cut. Heat, wet. I stayed upright because falling is contagious. Smoke from Fenric's thatch fire painted the world the color of old bruises. My right eye streamed. The left undercloth felt like a coal. I navigated by Tiro's cloth stick and the river's wet iron smell, which is a compass that does not care about panels. A freed walker, Helvius again, stumbled and then deliberately fell to trip a pursuing oval, buying 3 paces for a stretcher. He got up bleeding from the scalp and refused praise. Mules teach you how to be in the way usefully, he said. I put him near Tiro after that. Useful obstacles should be scheduled. Haldis's countercharge taught the line that practiced brace still needs friends. Tiro's knee cut was ugly and correct. Afterward, he wiped his blade in grass as if grass could forgive steel. I let him have the gesture. Not all cleanliness is denial. Some is how hands return to being hands. When Tauren's horse screamed past my arrow step miss by inches, I felt agility 14 as a thin gift. Thin gifts still count. I did not ask the system for thicker. Asking is how you start treating receipts like gods. Cassian's blood on my hip cooled and warmed with each step, a tide. I talked to him in short orders. Left root, lift, breathe. Not because he needed them, because I needed him answering. He answered with curses. Curses were green wood. Green wood can still hold weight. Halfway to the scrub rise on the return, the infant's mother stumbled and I caught the bundle before it hit root. The child stared at my eye strip with the absolute judgment of the very young. I deserved it. I handed the bundle back and took a javelin on the oval meant for my neck. Fair trade, if trades can be fair. The outer farm gate on the approach lane was a joke of posts until someone needed it to be a wall. Someone was us. A flood of host light infantry tried to cut across our nose and pin us against the drainage we had already spent. If they took the lane gate and held it outward, our walkers would be sheep in a ditch. If we took it and held it inward for 30 breaths, the thin blade and the freed could spill toward Rufus's lanterns. Gate, I called. Merrick got there first for the host, gate exit champion by trade if not by title. Scarred hands, a shield boss polished by other men's failures. He planted in the gateway as if he had paid rent. Cassian saw the math before I spoke it. I hold, he said. You can barely... I hold, he repeated, and the old Kane voice was back, the one that had called me idiot on wet slopes and meant stay alive. You break the side posts and get mouths through. I am a doorstop with opinions. There was no time for the argument love wanted. There was only the argument war allows. Tiro, with me on the right post. Capito, left. Walkers on my mark. We hit the posts. Merrick hit Cassian. Cassian, spear shaft cane in both hands, did not fight pretty. He fought like a man who had already spent his future and was buying present tense with the coins left. Boar brace is mine. What Cassian had was habit older than my system. He took Merrick's first shock on wood and bone. He refused the second with a hook that was not my echo and not less real. I shattered the right post's lashings. Capito kicked left. The gate frame sagged. Through. Walkers poured. The northern boy stumbled and was hauled by Orso without kindness. Stretchers scraped. A woman I had not realized was among the freed, camp follower taken for spite, ran with a child-sized bundle that turned out to be cloth and a living infant. War makes inventories stranger than panels. Merrick broke Cassian's shaft and put steel into him in the same motion. Cassian stayed upright by leaning on the sagging gate itself, body in the gap, making his flesh a bar. Go, Lucius, I wanted to stay. Wanting is not a formation. I put myself at Merrick for the breaths the walkers needed and made those breaths expensive. Shield hook, battle ready, turned his polished boss into a lie. Strength 14 drove the point where his scar tissue had taught him he was safe. He learned a new lesson late. Experience gained 3,100. Experience 8,700 of 14200. Cassian slid down the gate timber as the last walker cleared. I caught him under the arms. His blood was hot on my hands in a way that made strength feel like an insult. Not yet, he said. Wagons. You came for me and for the reason they took me. Burn their belly. Then you can waste time on an old man's breathing. You are coming with us. I am being carried with you, he corrected. Do not confuse transport with salvation. Tiro took Cassian's other side. Together we made a moving wound toward the fort lane, while Capito's remnant closed behind like a torn cloak pulled tight. The farm gate's wood was worm-soft in places and iron-hard in others, like bad leadership. Merrick knew which posts were true. Cassian knew which parts of his own body were still true. Between them, the gateway became a ledger of force. I saw the short spear wound high on Cassian's side when his tunic rode up under the bind of Merrick's strike. Earlier pen damage reopened, edges dark, the kind of mouth in flesh that does not close because you ask politely. Sava's future swearing assembled itself in my mind like a formation. Walkers poured with the inelegance of real survival. The infant made a thin sound. The mother smothered it with cloth and apology eyes. I wanted to tell her apology was unnecessary. There was no time for comfort that was not motion. When Merrick fell, I did not watch the experience line land. Cassian's sliding weight stole the entire field of attention. Numbers that arrive while a mentor bleeds are obscenities even when the rules are fair. Fairness is not kindness. Tiro said, I can run for Sava, and I said, Sava is a direction, not a miracle. We are the legs. He nodded and became legs. Capito's left post kick cracked something in his own bad knee. He did not mention it until we were through. Old men hide taxes until the account books close. I saw the limp and filed a Sava visit against his will. Armin's wagon park sat where Tiro had smelled oil. Canvas lumps, wheel ruts, a sleepy guard ring that was no longer sleepy. Rescue had pulled attention north. Fire loves divided attention. Ulfar held the near screen, rear screen chief, older than most, clever enough to put water pots on the oil wagons and sand on the grain. Clever is not complete. We hit the screen while his pots were still being shouted for. I did not need a lecture on logistics to know burning supply is a kind of battle. Livia would want counts of what burned. Rufus would want the smoke to mean something on a map. Cassian wanted the belly cut while he still had eyes to see the glow. Oil wagons first, I said, not the ones with water pots if you can read. Kill guards who make themselves hostile. Do not butcher the kneeling. Kneeling men are a test the system and I agreed on without conversation. Steel stayed sheathed. Rope was enough. Ulfar tried to make a line in front of the best oil. He was good. Good dies same as bad when intervals and hooks arrive with motive. My remaining blade, 6 bodies that still answered, hit him in staggered pairs. I took the center because centers are where excuses go to hide. Experience gained, 2,800. Experience, 1,100 500 of 1,400 200. Fire took with a sound like a giant inhaling. Canvas screamed. Oil found air and became a bright animal. Host voices changed pitch. Far horns answered. We had kicked a hive while carrying honey that bled. Enough, Capito yelled. Pretty fire does not walk stretchers. He was right. We threw 2 more torches where grain sacks sat dry, collapsed a wheel to foul a lane, and turned our backs on the kind of destruction junior officers write poems about. Destruction is only useful if you survive to file it. Just waited on the road home like a man who had predicted fire. Final roadbreaker, fresh, annoyed, a small wedge of hard ovals with him, not a host, enough to unmake a wounded file. 1 more door, I told the men, and hated that doors kept being made of people. Just came for me specifically. Word travels, eagle soldier, level numbers whispered by terrified scouts. He wanted a story, I wanted a road. Boar Brace took his commit. He had watched Brace before, fainted, then tried to bind my oval and knife low. I let Arrow Step make me late on purpose in the direction that saved the artery and cost the thigh again. Pain is information. I hooked his bind into his own knee and used Strength 14 without elegance. Experience gained, 2,700. Level 20 reached. Experience, 0 of 1,500 900. Vitality took the point because blood kept leaving and the night was not finished collecting. Vitality 14 became 15. The wounds did not close. The leaking became a slightly slower betrayal. Sava would still swear at me. The system still did not do her job. Lucius Varro, level 20. Experience 0 of 1,500 900. Strength 14. Endurance 15. Agility 14. Vitality 15. Intelligence 15. Skill echoes. Shield hook. Battle ready. Arrow step. Novice. Boar brace. Practiced. Echo slots. 3 of 3. No 4th slot. No miracle. Receipts and smoke and a veteran growing heavier on Tiro's shoulder and mine. Road, Cassian whispered, before you stare at your own legend. We took the road. Behind us, Wagons became a sunrise that did not belong to the sky. Ahead, Rufus's lanterns held their disciplined string. Between, the open strip waited to see whether we had paid enough. Oil firelight is wrong daylight. It makes faces look guilty even when they are only busy. Under that light, I saw Ulfar's water pots as a kind of respect. He had expected someone like us. I respected him enough to end him carefully rather than theatrically. Kneeling guards got rope, not steel. One spit at my boots and still got rope. The system stayed quiet. Quiet was correct. Helvius, bleeding scalp and all, helped bind because mule drivers know knots. The northern boy held a torch without being asked and did not bolt. Notes for later judgment, not for later fantasy. When grain sacks caught, the smell became bread's corpse. Someone among the freed sobbed at that more than at blood. Hunger remembers. I moved them on before memory became standing. Jast's wedge tried to make the road a classroom. I declined the lesson plan. After level 20 landed, Vitality 15 kept me from vomiting when I saw how much of Cassian's side had gone dark. The stat did not save him. It only kept the carrier standing. Sometimes that is the entire difference between a rescue and a procession of bodies. Capito slapped a man who stopped to watch the pretty fire. Eyes on intervals. The slap was love with poor manners. Cassian would have approved the manners exactly. One oil wagon's axle was already cracked. We broke the other side to make the ruin symmetrical and the lane fouler. Symmetry is not aesthetics here. It is how you stop a clever teamster from salvaging a path at dawn. Pursuit does not end because you set a pretty fire. Host light files followed the smoke's logic toward us, then corrected toward the road when a scout with a working brain saw our file. We were a wounded millipede, stretchers, limps, one infant bundle, one bound northern boy, Cassian between Tiro and me like a standard made of pain. Rufus blew a short pattern, receive, not withdraw. From the fort side, Capito's left century remnant and Navius's right pushed a corridor of shields onto the strip's near edge. Not a glorious charge, a hallway built of wood and stubbornness. Into the hallway, I shouted. We poured. Javelins chased. One took Orso in the shield and spun him. He stayed up. Another found empty air where arrow step had put me a half pace left. Novice still charging interest in the shin. I did not thank the echo. I used it and kept moving. Gaius's reserve appeared at last on the south fringe, clean enough to photograph if marble could. They threw a few peeler at long range and looked busy. Some host scouts veered from that glitter. Useful, late. I did not waste spit on the lateness while Cassian's blood warmed my hip. Inside the corridor, Navius's face was raw with the need to have been earlier. Orders? Hold the hallway until the last stretcher, then fold back by horn. Do not chase smoke. Yes, Centurion. Centurion still. The word felt small against the night's weight and large against my first muddy days. Titles lag bodies. Hanno met us at the stake lane with ferry hands and a look that inventoried living faces. Chain holds, pins doubled. You look like meat. Meat that walks, I said. Clear a path to Sava. Sava took Cassian from us with hands that did not care about levels. On the table, pressure, you. Eye strip stays. Thigh is open again. Sit before you become a second patient I resent. After the count starts, I said. During, she snapped, and shoved me onto a stool hard enough that Vitality 15 had something to do. Cassian gripped my wrist with surprising strength. Listen, they asked about your eyes, about panels, about whether the eagle nests in blood or in lore. I told them it nests in drill and that Armin would die of disappointment if he kept waiting for magic to make Romans stupid. Did they believe you? They believed pain. Information is a leash. I pulled it as long as I could. He coughed. Sava swore. Also, Wagon Park had sealed boxes with Roman stamp marks under the oilcloth. Not all northern supply. Someone feeds both sides of a fire. Livia, already there with wax, went still. Stamps. I saw enough letters to know a treasury hand, Cassian said. Not enough to hang a name. Hang the fire first. Hang names when you can prove them. Gaius stood within earshot and found somewhere else to be. The absence was a signature. Rufus arrived with his sealed wax calm cracked at the edges. Report while blood is still honest. I gave him the sequence without poetry. Goat line, pen as jaw, named teeth, levels 18 through 20 with endurance, strength, vitality in that order. Wagons burned, Cassian carried, pursuit broken into our corridor, Gaius late and shiny, no eagle breaker claimed, no sight used under bait conditions, boar brace limits paid in feints and cracked wood, arrow step still novice and still useful at ugly angles. Rufus listened. Write it twice, he said again, habit become ritual, and get that thigh closed before you try to command anything denser than a stool. The hallway of shields on the strip felt like walking into a mouth that had decided to be friendly. Navius's files shook and held. Shaking that holds is better than stillness that shatters. Gaius's long-range peeler hit dirt and one unlucky host scout. His men cheered themselves. I did not look long. Credit is a currency. I spend it on people who arrive when the jaw is still open. Sava's stool order came with a needle look. I sat. Sitting under orders is also command discipline. The thigh pack grew tight and hot. She muttered about farmers who think vitality is a personality. I laughed once and paid for it in rib grate. Cassian's stamp talk landed in Livia's eyes like a spark on oilcloth. She did not explode, she stored. I have known men who confuse storage with inaction. Livia's storage is how empires get dens for winter. Rufus's write it twice ritual steadied me more than the stool. Rituals that produce copies produce survivors in courts. Courts were coming. I could smell their ink under the smoke. Inside the corridor, a young file closer from Navius's century cried while holding shield. I told him crying was allowed if his feet kept interval. He laughed through snot and became useful again. Permission is sometimes the only bandage you have on a road. Dawn tried to arrive clean and failed. Smoke from the wagon fire stained the light. Host drums spoke anger without full advance. Armin counting losses or baiting us to spill out and celebrate. Celebration would have been idiocy. We counted instead. Secundus met me with the book and a face like a closed door that still worked. 56 sealed remain sealed. 3 temporary raiders separate. Odo sitting sleep. Baran same bargain as yesterday. Breath versus color. Field bonds from the red day still outside main register. New living taken in the night action under temporary posts. 4 host wounded who yielded under bonds, including one of Ulfar's screen who can name wagon stamps if he wants water. Freed Romans returned. 9 walkers, 2 non-walkers now under medical, 1 infant with mother, 1 northern boy under separate watch claiming refused silver order. Cassian, present, critical. Your thin blade dead, 1. Thin blade wounded, 5, including you if you stop lying. I never lie to the book, I said, only to my legs. He almost smiled. Almost was enough. Then the morning broke its second way. A runner from the upstream pickets arrived foam-mouthed. Capito, down. Tower stone or sling, head. Breathing, not speaking. Optio holds left by habit. Another runner on his heels. Navius hit in the false horn confusion on the right fringe. Host probe, not full push. Spear in the side. He gave the interval order before he fell. Optio requests higher voice. Rufus's jaw worked. I cannot be mound, ferry, left and right. You shouldn't be, I said, standing despite Sava's noise. Give me temporary operational command of the field sentries and the receive corridor. You keep fort, ferry final, and withdrawal authority. Livia keeps paper and supply truth. Gaius keeps South Reserve under written limit, no independent advances. Gaius returned by the smell of authority moving, flushed. You are a centurion. I am the man who just brought living mouths through a jaw while you polished distance, I said, and kept the words flat so they would not become a speech. Rufus decides. Rufus looked at Capito's blood on the first runner's sleeve, at Navius's name still hanging in the air, at the smoke column, at my eye strip, at Cassian's stillness on Sava's table. Temporary operational command of the field force is Lucius's, he said. My horn is still the law for withdrawal and ferry denial. Gaius remains South Reserve. If he advances without my mark or Lucius's written relay, he answers for every corpse he creates. Gaius's smile was all teeth again, as ordered for the record. Everything is for the record, Livia said. That is why some of us fear it. I took the mound steps because height helps voices. Tiro raised the signum fully for the first time since the night. Men looked at cloth before they looked at my swollen face. Healthy. Left Optio holds Capito's intervals. No revenge pushes, I called. Right Optio holds Navius's mark. Kill false horns with silence. Center remains mixed and ugly. Corridor stays a hallway, not a parade. Water skins forward, arrow counts to Ilios. If Armin probes, we bend, we do not break, we do not chase smoke into his second jaw. They moved, not because a panel glowed, because someone had given them a shape that fit the morning. A probe came, test groups, not Armin in person. We met them with stakes, cloth signals, and the kind of boring courage that keeps forts alive. I used shield hook twice in the corridor, when a rush tried to make a name for itself. No named champion rose high enough in the mess to write a receipt. The system stayed quiet, and I stayed grateful. Not every fight is a ladder. Some are rent. Hanno sent word that a host raft tried the chain and learned about pins the expensive way. Pellis wanted credit. I gave him a nod and extra water. Men work harder for nods that arrive with water than for marble. By full light, Capito still breathed without words. Navius drank vinegar and insulted the spear that had opened him, which Sava called a good sign. Cassian sank deeper into a quiet that was not sleep. The runner who brought Capito's fall had gravel embedded in his palms from a crawl under sling fire. I sent him to water before questions. Dead messengers create romantic stories. Living ones create usable timelines. When Navius's side wound was described, I felt the false horn lesson complete a circle. He had almost been undone by mimicry yesterday. Today, mimicry's cousins had found him anyway. Almost is a country. He still lived on its border. I intended to keep him there. Gaius's flush when Rufus spoke temporary operational command was a tell. Livia later marked on wax as pride injury. Watch for infection. She is cruel in the useful register. My mound speech about hallways and silence was not eloquent. Eloquence is how you get quoted by enemies. Shape is how you get obeyed by friends. The left Optio repeated the no revenge order to his files as if he had invented it. Good. Invented obedience lasts longer than borrowed glory. During the probe fights where the system stayed quiet, I noticed my own hunger for receipts like a bad taste. I spat it out metaphorically and drank water literally. Levels are a trail. Trails are not the destination. Cassian had beaten that into me before the system ever wrote a number on my morning. I sent the South Fringe a written limit for Gaius in duplicate. Hold. Do not advance. Relay by cloth if host pressure turns south. He initialed one copy with a flourish that could have been a blade. Livia filed the flourish as evidence of mood. General is a word Rome sells with ceremonies. Function is what happens when ceremonies are late and men still need angles. I spent the middle day doing general's work without the title, shifting 2 files to thicken the right where Navius's absence made a soft seam, pulling Gaius's clean cohort 10 paces forward, only as a visible weight, then sending them back when they began to look like a parade that invited arrows. Ordering the burned wagon smoke watched for wind shifts so it would not blind our own corridor, making Ilius write signal times large enough that frightened men could read them at a run. Livia walked with me for 1 circuit, tablets against her chest. You are commanding like a man who expects to be blamed. I am commanding like a man who has been blamed, I said. Blame is weather. Results are crops. Gaius is already drafting weather, she said. His freedman was seen near the copy chest. I moved our true sequence under my seal and Rufus's. If they steal a lie I planted. You are dangerous. I am alive, she said. Try to match me. Tiro found a moment at the signum post where Cassian's true cane still leaned. He set his hand on it the way I had the night before. He told me once that standards are for when faces fail, Tiro said. My face is failing. Then hold cloth, I said. Cloth does not need to be brave. It needs to be visible. He nodded, eyes wet, jaw set. The boy who had panicked in Aldermud was not gone. He had company now. A man who could hold a stick while weeping and still be useful. I preferred that man to any perfect statue. Armin did not come in person. Eagle sight stayed shut. I did not need purple confirmation that a level 27 shadow still owned the far fields. Drums spoke regrouping. Scouts spoke of silver clasps pulling back from the burned park with curses and buckets. Buckets after fire are a kind of defeat. I took it without smiling. A deputation of junior officers asked whether temporary operational command meant they saluted me as they would a legate. Salute the order, not my shoulders, I said. Shoulders change. Orders that keep intervals should not. One of them looked disappointed. Disappointment is fine. Disappointment means they still had room to learn. I ate standing up. Bread, salt, a strip of meat that might have been mule. Endurance 15 accepted it. Vitality 15 kept the thighs' heat from becoming a faint. Strength 14 helped me catch a collapsing water-bearer and set him on a barrel. Intelligence 15 kept whispering that Gaius's lateness and the treasury stamps under oilcloth were the same animal wearing different skins. I did not chase the animal yet. Open field first. Knives in the forum later. Rufus joined me at second hour after noon, face grey. Courier from the South Road, not Gaius's, mime. Language careful, Senate names. Gaius's uncle's seal adjacent. They want you recalled under tighter leash if you survive this week. They also want Armin's head if convenient. Convenient heads are rare, I said. Become inconvenient, Rufus said, and keep my army. Our army, I said. He almost argued, then let the word stand. Ownership is a fight for quieter rooms. Near evening, Capito squeezed a medic's finger and tried to say left, which the Optio translated as hold the line, you dogs, and the left held with a cheer they were not supposed to make. I allowed one cheer. Then I killed the second with a look. Noise is a resource. Navius demanded to be propped where he could see his right files. Sava allowed it under threat of more vinegar. He caught my eye and mouthed, still here. I mouthed it back. The phrase had become a chain of its own between Tiro, me, and now a wounded centurion who had almost run a false horn and had chosen not to become his worst minute forever. Cassian did not mouth anything. His chest rose, fell, rose less. Shifting files without panicking them is like moving pots on a stove while they boil. I spoke to Optios, not to crowds. Crowds hear fear even when you say courage. Optios hear angles. Gaius's clean cohort pushed forward 10 paces as visible weight began to dress ranks as if a gallery of senators sat in the clouds. I sent them back with a written relay so the order could not become a rumor he could twist. He complied with theatrical precision. Theatrical precision is a kind of threat. Ilias's large letter signal times saved a file from misreading a cloth flash as advance. The file's Optio later brought Ilias a heel of bread like a votive. I pretended not to see. Some religions should be local. The junior officers who wanted legate salutes needed the sting of salute the order. One of them was the son of a man who owned vines near my old tenancy. He almost said my father's name and then swallowed it. Past lives are distractions with emotional hooks. I let the hook pass without biting. Evening light made Armin's far camp look almost peaceful. Peaceful hosts are hosts that are thinking. Thinking hosts are more dangerous than screaming ones. I ordered steak repairs and early sleep rotations anyway. Sleep is a weapon that requires scheduling. At mid-afternoon, I forced myself to sit with Capito's silence and tell him the left still held, even if he could not answer. Unconscious officers still own files in men's minds. Someone must speak into that ownership, or rumor will. A refugee slinger asked whether temporary operational command meant higher bread shares. It means higher blame shares, I said, and gave him bread anyway from my own portion. Blame tastes better with salt. Night of the second day after the red field came with cooler air and the smell of burned oil that would live in men's hair for a week. Sava called me with a voice from which she had removed all theatre. Now, Cassian's eyes were open. The cane from the signum post was in his hand because Tiro had brought it without being told. Wood and flesh met like old partners. Idiot, Cassian said, soft. Present, I said. You did not spend the army on guilt. Good. You burned the belly. Better. You are going to let Rome put a leash on you if you play alone. Don't. His gaze flicked to Livia in the doorway, to Tiro at the foot of the table, to Rufus's shadow in the hall. Use people who can read stamps and hold cloth and blow horns. Levels do not file charges. People do. I will. You will try. Trying is what separates you from Armin. He only succeeds or kills. Cassian breathed, shallow. No echo from me. I am not your hostile. If your toy offers anything, refuse. I will haunt you harder if you turn my death into a trick. There is no offer, I said. Truth. The system did not glow. Allied death pays nothing on the panel, and I would not have taken payment if it had. The rules held when I wanted them to break and when I wanted them to hold. Both wants were selfish in different clothes. Cassian's mouth twitched. Good machine. Ugly. Honest. He squeezed the cane. Tell the boys intervals beat miracles. Tell yourself the same when the purple eye wants to be a god. I will. Livia, he said, and she came without pride. Make him write limits before they write him. I intend to, she said. Tiro, cloth high when his face fails. Yes, Tiro said, and did not hide the tears. Cassian looked back to me. You are general in every way that matters until some bastard steals the word. Do the work, let them catch up with titles. A longer breath. Also, you still plant late on feints. Brace is not a religion, I know. You know with your mouth. He almost laughed, then stopped, as if laughter cost a coin he needed for something else. Keep knowing with your feet. His hand loosened on the cane. The chest rose once more, shallow as a lie, and did not rise again. Sava put 2 fingers to his throat and waited longer than hope wanted. Gone, she said. No panel, no chime, no receipt for an ally's death, and no mercy dressed as numbers. Only a room that had 1 fewer argument in it, and a cane that had become wood again in a final way. I did not scream. Screaming is for when you want the host to know where the soft parts are. I set Cassian's hand on his chest, took the cane, and walked it back to the signum post myself. Men parted, some wept, some looked angry at me for living. Both were fair. Tiro raised the signum a handspan and lowered it. Not a ritual we had, a motion that said the air had changed. Hanno, at the edge of the medical light, cried without sound and wiped his face with a bandage roll, then cursed himself for wasting clean cloth. Also stood guard at the door as if death might try to leave and need stabbing. Rufus spoke from the hall. We will bury him where the fort can see the river. Not a hero mound for Armin to mock. A soldier's place. Yes, I said. Livia did not touch me in front of the men. She stood close enough that her shoulder could have, and that was a kind of touch. He paid, she said. Do not try to refund it with stupidity. I won't. I sat on the mound steps with the cane across my knees and let the night make its ordinary sounds. Chain tick, infant cry from the freed woman's corner. Far drums, near snoring, a cook arguing with a pot. Ordinary sounds remained a wall. Walls need maintenance. I maintained mine by breathing until breath was just breath again. Inside, without opening a glow, I knew the inventory. Level 20, experience empty against a higher bar. Strength 14, endurance 15, agility 14, vitality 15, intelligence 15. Echoes the same 3, slots full, wounds open. Cassian gone, wagons burned, mouths saved, title absent, function present. The veteran's price was not a number. It was the empty space at the signum post that would never again be filled by that particular insulting voice. I would have to become the insult myself when boys planted late. That inheritance is heavier than a cane. Sava had cleaned Cassian's face. That small dignity undid me more than the wound. Men should not die with other men's blood dried in their eyebrows, if a cloth can prevent it. She had prevented it. I owed her vinegar and obedience for a month. When Cassian warned me against turning his death into a trick, I felt the system the way you feel a quiet animal in a room. Present, not performing. No glow, no offer. The rules that denied me experience for executions also denied me experience for grief. I preferred that consistency to a kinder lie. Tiro's tears fell on the table wood and darkened it like brief rain. He did not wipe them until Cassian's eyes no longer reflected lanterns. Timing tears is not coldness. It is respect for the last moments of a man who hated theatre. Rufus's burial decision, No hero mound for Armin to mock. Fit Cassian better than marble ever would. Cassian would have spat on marble. He might have accepted river sight lines. He had always liked knowing where the water was. After I set the cane at the signum post, a recruit asked if we would retire the stick as sacred. No, I said. Sacred sticks do not teach. This stick will lean where living men can remember why intervals matter. If it becomes sacred, I will burn it myself. The recruit looked shocked. Shock is a teacher too. I asked Sava whether Cassian had said anything in the hour I was on the mound arguing hallway orders. He said, "Tell the idiot not to plant late," she answered. Then he slept. Then he woke for you. The sequence broke something small and necessary in my chest. I let it break. Unbroken chests cannot hold certain truths. We buried Cassian at first light in ground that could see the chain. No long oration. Rufus spoke 8 sentences about intervals, stubbornness, and a cane that had taught more law than half the marble in Italy. Tiro planted the signum at the head of the turned earth for the length of a held breath, then took it back to the living line. I set the cane into the soil beside the marker stone like a root that refused to pretend it was a sword. Men filed past. Some dropped a pebble. Some dropped nothing but a look. Capito, awake enough to be carried in a chair, dropped a curse that made 2 recruits flinch and then stand straighter. Navius, pale on his own chair, saluted with the arm that did not pull his side. Hanno left a ferry pin, cleaned of rust, as if the dead might need to secure a deck in whatever river comes after. I did not cry where Armin's scouts could price it. Later, in the shadow of the eve, I let water leave the right eye because the left still would not open properly. Sava pretended not to see. Pretending is sometimes medicine. Then we worked, because work is the only honest eulogy a fort can afford. Secundus laid the full dawn custody like a man dealing knives face up. Main register, 56 sealed remain sealed. No volunteer openings. 3 temporary raiders remain separate. Odo, sitting sleep, fed. Baran, breath improved a finger. Color still a thief. Treatment separate continues. Red Day field bonds, 14 of rank or use still living under temporary posts, Bram included and still cursing. 3 unnamed wounded still held. Night action additions, 4 host under new temporary bonds, including Ulfar's screener who has begun trading stamp talk for water under Livia's witness. Freed intake, 9 Roman walkers restored to duty light or medical light as Sava marks. 2 non-walkers in medical, mother and infant in civilian cloth under roof mark, northern boy separate, statement taken, no seal merger with hostiles. Dead of hours from the thin blade, 1 named on the wax. Cassian, struck from living roster, entered on burial roll with witnesses Rufus, Sava, Lucius, Tiro. Write the northern boy's claim in his words, Livia said, not in ours. Secundus nodded, already. I walked the medical line and let men see the eye strip and the thigh pack and the fact that level 20 still sat on stools when ordered. A recruit asked whether 20 meant I could bring men back. I told him 20 meant I had spent a night spending blood for mouths and that the dead stay dead. He looked older when I left. Good. Soft lies make soft graves. Ilias brought signal cloth inventories. Pellis brought pin counts. Also brought a shield boss polished until it looked like gilt. I told him to stop polishing and start sleeping. He slept sitting up against the signum post like a dog that had decided wood was a person. Livia and I sat with Rufus over the stamp fragments Ulfar's man described, Roman treasury adjacent marks, not full names, enough to smell Gaius's weather system without yet hanging him. We do not publish this as proof, Livia said. We store it as a tooth. Teeth bite when the mouth is ready. Gaius will move before our mouth is ready, I said. Then we move paper faster than he moves rumor, she said. Rufus rubbed his face. Temporary operational command continues until Capito can speak a full order and Navius can stand a full watch. Lucius, you will not parade the word general. You will do the work. If Rome sends a leash, we will see whose neck it fits. Understood. I drilled bore brace at noon with a battered line and a cart we still hated. Practiced depth held on true commits. Feints still taxed me. I planted late once and let Capito's Optio shout at me in Cassian's cadence without asking permission. The shout hurt correctly. Arrow step drills stayed short. Novice hips under fatigue become ankle taxes. Shield hook stayed cleanest. Battle ready earned on older days. Still honest when rims met rims. Eagle sight I did not touch. The eye strip was not only Sava's law, it was Cassian's last lecture sitting on my face. Armin's host shifted camp lines farther from the burned park. Not retreat, reassessment. A level 27 war leader who had lost wagons and a prisoner bait would not vanish. He would invent a worse morning. We used the bought day to fill skins, restock stakes, and write honest reports before dishonest ones grew wings. Gaius requested a private conference. I granted it in the open eve with Livia present and Tiro near enough to hear tone, if not every word. Gaius spoke of unity, of aristocratic channels, of the danger of farmers with glowing toys. I spoke of intervals, stamps under oilcloth, and the hour he arrived shiny on the strip. He left with his teeth smile nailed on. Livia said, "He has chosen a direction." "So have we," I said. Pebbles on the burial dirt clicked under fingers like cheap beads. I hated how small the sounds were. Then I decided small sounds were correct. Cassian had never wanted drums for his own name. Helvius the mule driver stood in the light-duty line with a bandaged scalp and asked to haul water to the right files because Navius's men looked thin in the eyes. I allowed it. Returned walkers who volunteer logistics without speeches are worth 3 volunteers who want revenge narratives. Ulfar's screener under bond spoke stamp details in a mix of Latin and Northern that forced Livia to slow him down and draw shapes. He wanted extra water. She gave measured water for measured phrases. Mercy with metering. Cassian would have called her a proper quartermaster of truth. I wrote a private line on my own scrap after the public reports. Cassian held a gate. The panel stayed dark. If I forget which of those mattered, I have already lost the war that matters. I burned the scrap after memorizing it. Some ledgers should not be seizable. At brace drill, when I planted late on a feint, the Optio's Cassian cadence shout made 2 recruits laugh in the painful way that means the dead are still coaching. I took an extra drill rotation as tax. The line improved by a finger's width. Finger widths win gates. I inspected the 4 new host bonds myself and found 1 rope cutting a wrist. We loosened and resealed with witness marks. Cruelty without need is how you recruit the enemy's storytellers. Secundus noted the correction without praising me. Perfect. The direction arrived at dusk on the 3rd day as clean ink on good paper, not Armin's drums, a Roman courier under a small escort that had not bled with us, boots still proud of southern roads. He asked for the senior commander. Rufus took the scroll first, broke the seal that claimed Senate-adjacent authority, and read with his face turning to stone 1 muscle at a time. He handed it to me without speech. The words were careful. Careful words cut deeper than clumsy ones. They named me Lucius Varro, centurion of irregular elevation, temporary wielder of unlawful influence over legionary force. They named the night rescue an unsanctioned adventure. They named the wagon fire a provocation risking wider war. They named Cassian's death, news travels faster when someone wants it to, as evidence of reckless command. They ordered my immediate relief, my person secured under Gaius Septim's authority for conveyance south, and the field force returned to proper channels. At the bottom, in a hand that had practiced beauty, a harder line. Failure to comply would mark Lucius Varro and those who harbored his command as rebels against the peace of Rome. Gaius stood at the courier's shoulder as if he had grown there. For the record, he said softly, I advised milder language. I was outvoted by necessity. Necessity wears your boots, Livia said. Rufus's voice came out low. This seal is not a full Senate decree. It is a knife made of cousins and fear. It is enough knife to cut a supply road, Gaius said. Enough to turn loyal men into criminals if they keep taking orders from a glowing farmer. Hand him over, Rufus. Keep your fort, keep your chain, keep your name. Men had gathered, not a mob, a gravity. Capito in his chair, Navius pale, Hanno with pin grease on his hands, Secundus with the book, Tiro with the signum, Sava with blood under her nails, the freed mother with the infant, ordinary weight. I looked at the cane root in the burial ground, visible from the eave if you knew where to look. I looked at the chain. I looked at the eye strip's edge in my peripheral dark. No, I said. Gaius's eyebrows rose as if I had performed a trick. No? I will not put my wrists in your custody so you can lose me on a road where stamps already feed both sides of a fire, I said. I will not abandon this fort while Armin still owns the far fields. I will submit to a lawful review under full seals when the host is not at the door and when the writers of this ink stand in the same mud they judge. Until then, temporary operational command remains as Rufus set it. Men who wish to walk south with Gaius may walk. Men who hold intervals here remain under horn and cloth. Rufus did not smile. He stood beside me, which was better. My horn remains law for withdrawal and ferry. My fort does not sell its centurion to a cousin's panic while a boar host rebuilds. Courier, carry that back. Gaius, South Reserve remains South Reserve. If you move to seize Roman officers by force inside my works, you become the rebel your paper pretends to fear. Gaius's teeth smile finally broke into something real and ugly. You choose a farmer over Rome. I choose a living army over your clean boots, Rufus said. Livia lifted her tablet, and I choose to write this hour before you do. Witnesses, names, words, exact. If we are rebels on your paper, we will be precise rebels. Tiro raised the signum without being told. Cloth caught the last light. Men did not cheer. Cheering would have been a story Gaius could use. They simply did not move to seize me. That non-motion was a vote older than ballots. The courier looked young and trapped. I pitied him without softening. Drink water before you ride, I said. Hungry couriers make worse wars. He drank, he rode. Gaius watched him go, then looked back at me as if measuring a future blade. Civil blood costs more than northern blood, he said. Your toy may not like the taste, or it may like it too much. Either way, I will be there to write what you become. Write carefully, I said. Livia reads. He left for the south fringe with his polished cohort, not yet attacking, already separating, a tumor choosing where to grow, hostility without open steel, the worst kind of morning cooking under a calm sky. Night came. I walked the stake lane with Tiro and the signum and the memory of a cane tapping sense into fools. Armin's fires burned in their new pattern. Gaius's fires burned smaller, nearer, Roman. 2 threats, 1 river, 1 fort, 1 temporary general without a title holding a line that had become more than a century's problem. Sava caught me and rebuilt the thigh pack. You will sleep. I will try. Trying is Cassian's word tonight, she said. Use it. On the mound, I opened the panel once for the inventory habit that kept me from turning grief into prophecy. Lucius Varro, level 20, experience 0 of 1,500-900, strength 14, endurance 15, agility 14, vitality 15, intelligence 15, skill echoes, shield hook, battle ready, arrow step, novice, boar brace, practiced, echo slots 3 of 3. The panel had not priced Cassian's body at the sagging gate, and I refused to let any later story pretend numbers had. Captives freed, wagons burned, field force still answering cloth and horn under my operational voice, Rufus still holding fort law, Livia still holding teeth in wax, Tiro still holding cloth when faces failed, immediate work done, larger war rewritten in clean ink. I closed the panel, the chain ticked against its posts. Far north, a host rebuilt. Near south, a Roman with beautiful handwriting taught men to say rebel the way you say pray. Between them, we kept the river's iron and a grave that could see it. Still here, Tiro said. Still here, I answered, and felt the words change shape, less comfort, more oath, under a sky that no longer promised only foreign spears. Tomorrow would demand scouts, seals, and the refusal to let either Armin or Gaius choose what kind of eagle I became. Tonight demanded sleep, water, and the hard peace of a promise kept, mouths brought home, a belly burned, a veteran's price paid in full without being turned into a trick. I lay down on a cloak that still smelled of pitch, river, and the red field's stubborn stink. The signum stood where living hands could find it. The cane slept in soil. The fort breathed. Somewhere a child of the freed infant sleep made a small sound and was soothed. Ordinary walls maintained. When I slept, I did not dream of marble. I dreamed of intervals and of a rough voice calling me idiot until my feet remembered what my mouth already claimed to know. I woke once to a false horn in the far dark, Gaius's side or Armin's mimic, hard to tell. I did not rise swinging. I sent Tiro's cloth signal for silence and ears. The horn died without a body following it. Fear tried to invent shapes. We refused the invention and kept the watch roster as written. That refusal was command as much as any charge. Before dawn of the next turn, Livia showed me the first copy of her witness tablet. My name sat beside Rufus's and Capito's mark as Abel, and the freed mother's rough X. If they call us rebels, Livia said, they will have to call all of these names rebels too. Make the word expensive. Expensive is good, I said. Cheap wars kill more. I checked the ferry with Hanno while stars still hung. Pins cold, chain true. He asked if I would run south and throw myself on some uncle's mercy. No, I said. Mercy that arrives as a cage can wait until the host is not choosing our graves for us. Hanno grunted approval and spit in the river for luck he claimed not to believe in. Capito managed 3 clear words at the edge of light. Hold, left, idiot. The last was for me, affectionate as a bruise. I took it as blessing and orders both. Navius slept after a clean dressing. His Optio did not. Good. Sleep is a supply. Someone has to guard the store. Secundus sealed the knight's last line in the book. No mergers, no mysterious vacancies. Cassian's burial roll closed with pebble count. I signed. The pen felt heavier than Orth's spear. Pens are. At the signum, I told the empty air. What of Cassian that might still listen? That the rescue had not been clean, that the trap had bitten, that the gate had cost what it cost, and that I would not spend his remaining lesson on Gaius's smile or Armin's bait. Then I stopped talking to air and started talking to living Optios about water and stakes, because the dead deserve action more than speeches. South, Gaius's cohort fires burned in a neat rectangle like a paragraph. North, Armin's fires burned in a broken scatter like a problem. Between them, under temporary operational command and a paper brand drying toward the word rebel, we held a river, a fort, a grave, and a set of names that still answered when cloth rose. That was the veteran's price, paid and receipted in every way except the systems. A voice gone, a function taken up, a civil blade unsheathed on clean ink, and a farmer in an eye strip refusing to kneel on schedule. I buckled a scutum that was not yet cracked, tasted ash on the morning bread, and went to place men where the next hour would try to unmake them. Places, not speeches. Cassian would have allowed the repetition. He had always preferred tools that worked twice. I stood one last time at the burial edge before the fort fully woke and set 2 fingers on the soil as if checking a pulse the earth did not owe me. Intervals, I told him, because that was the prayer he would have tolerated. Then I walked back to the living line where Tiro waited with cloth, Livia with wax, Rufus with horn lore, Hanno with pins, and a south fringe of clean fires learning how to say my name like a crime. The river kept its iron. I kept my place. The day began without asking whether Rome approved the weather. Secundus met me at the eve with a single fresh line. No one had opened a seal in the night, and the northern boys' separate watch had slept without trying the rope. Small victories keep forts from becoming legends of collapse. I signed the line, ate the ash-tasting bread, and sent Helvius with water to Navius's right before the heat rose. Somewhere south, beautiful handwriting would be drying into orders that named me rebel. Somewhere north, a champion would be counting what fire had cost him. Between them, under level 20 and an eye that still refused full light, we held what we could hold and refused to confuse speed with wisdom, or ink with truth, or grief with permission to become the kind of eagle that eats its own. The courier's escort kept their hands off weapon hilts in a way that said they had been ordered to look peaceful and ready. Peaceful and ready is Gaius's favorite costume. I offered water anyway. Costumes do not make throats less dry. When I read the line about Cassian's death as evidence of reckless command, anger arrived so clean it felt like cold water. I held it below the tongue. Anger spoken becomes Gaius's Exhibit A. Anger used becomes stake repairs and witness tablets. Rufus, standing beside me without smiling, was the political equivalent of boar brace. True plant, no feint. Men saw it. Men who had been calculating which way to lean stopped calculating long enough to remain upright in our wind. Livia's precise rebels line would travel. I almost asked her to soften it, then did not. Softening is how careful knives get remembered as blunt. Let the word be expensive. After Gaius separated to the south fringe, Hanno spat toward that neat rectangle of fires and then looked guilty for spitting toward Romans. "They're still Latin," he muttered. "So is poison," I said. He did not like the answer. He accepted the watch list I handed him anyway. In the last inventory before sleep, I noticed Intelligence 15 itching to build a grand theory of treasury stamps, boar oaths, and Senate cousins. I postponed the theory. Theories without the next stake line are how generals become lecturers. Cassian had no patience for lecturers. Neither, tonight, did the chain's true iron. Before the courier rode, Tiro quietly swapped the man's tired horse for a fresher mule from our string and recorded the swap so no one could call it theft. Even enemies should arrive to lie with accurate travel time, Tiro said. I almost hugged him. I assigned him an extra water ration instead. Sleep, when it came after the false horn died, was shallow and full of gate timber. I woke knowing the next stretch of my life would include Romans who wanted me caged and a host that wanted me unmade. Knowing is not winning. It is only the start of placing stakes where fear wants empty air.